certifying badasses, one podcast at a time, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Fearless Fridays are filled with the best tips, advice, and direction, like tasty apple-a-day tidbits that grow intuition from your supply of common sense, under the watchful guidance of Kelly Orchard, Badass Certifier. Flipping the format on the fear of failure.
That's right. We're flipping the format on the fear of failure. On this Fruitful Friday, thank you so much, Bobby Ocean, for that fantastic introduction. I just love that. It just makes everything seem more professional and in-depth to me, even though I am kind of a professional myself, but I don't know, something about Bobby Ocean just makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? All right, people often ask, what's the hardest part about becoming licensed to be badass? And you know what? Anybody will tell you it's to make the decision that you want to make a shift. This is a Badass Leadership Summit I'm having all throughout the month of March. We've now hit spring, and we're covering the letter D in Badass, which stands for Decide, to Grow, and Succeed. So if you're following along, you're seeing that there's a theme. If you've missed some episodes, hey, that's the beautiful thing about on demand. You can always go back and catch some of those episodes you've missed. I promise I only keep them about 20 minutes, so it's not like a huge commitment, but it's so helpful. And every week I give you 3 separate podcasts with Mustang Monday, Wednesday Wisdom, and Fruitful Friday. And speaking of fruitful, also on this podcast platform that you're listening to this right now, I also have Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, which is a daily podcast, 60 seconds on wisdom, success, and personal growth. You can't go wrong with me. I promise you, I'm giving you plenty of stuff. I'm having a Badass Leadership Summit, and on this Fruitful Friday, I've got some apples of wisdom for you about leadership practices, some tips for a productive team, and some weekend vibes. On Wednesday, we played Carry On Wayward Son from Kansas is one of the songs on my Badass soundtrack. If you missed out on that story, just, go back to the Wednesday podcast. I've got another clip from my Badass certification class coming up to share next Wednesday. And when we get done with this, when we wrap up, Bobby's going to give you another hint on what we should share next week. Won't you, Bobby?
Just as apples are a core ingredient to a healthy diet, Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day is a core ingredient to living a fruitfully badass life.
Well, alrighty then. Thank you so much once again, Bobby Ocean. Hey, I use the term change agent when I described myself and what I do. I thought about using the term growth agent, but there's too much controversy around the term growth agent when talking about chemicals or biological research and nutrition. So I won't use that, but I am an agent of growth. So let me ask you this question. Do you really feel as though you need to change, or is it that you really need to grow? There's a big difference between change and growth. A plant might change its colors with the seasons, but what it is ultimately doing is growing into something new, refined, evolved. So ask yourself these leadership questions. What are you doing? Are you growing? Are you evolving? Or do you really need to change? Think about that. Is it change that you need, or growth? And are they the same thing? There can be a minor difference in that whole philosophy. There are moments when troubles enter our lives and we can do nothing to avoid them. But they are there for a reason. Only when we have overcome them will we understand why they were there. That's a quote from Paulo Coelho. As you strive for confidence in leadership, personal growth is badass. Badass leadership means being prepared. I was once asked that what qualifies you to be a personal and professional growth coach. Now, I was actually grateful for that question because even though it could have been perceived as a challenge, it really wasn't. This person was actually trying to think about how she might want to hire me or invite me to speak at her organization or one of her upcoming events. So she was vetting me, inquiring about my credentials. She really wanted to know what qualifies me over somebody else. I had an answer to her question that my degree in psychology psychology and earning a license to be a marriage and family therapist provides me with the education and experience to really make those psychoeducational concepts work in the area of personal growth. And my 30 plus years in business afforded me the background to be an effective coach for professional growth. I've prepared myself for those types of inquiries, and it's with great privilege to help others achieve their growth goals. The lesson is, use your experiences to your advantage. Don't let a simple question of what qualifies you deter you from answering confidently. You're ready. You're a badass leader. You are qualified. And if not, learn, listen, study, and practice to be at that level you desire to be. Keep your eye on the prize. I found this snippet in an issue of Psychology Today written by Lauren Friedman. The purpose of happiness is intrinsic to American identity, but 2 recent studies in emotion report that seeking a constant stream of positivity often backfires. Still, you're not powerless to change your mood. Positive psychology has demonstrated that lasting benefits of paying attention to where you are, not just to where you're going. In addition, success may be dictated by how explicitly you label your goal as happiness. When I tell my clients to be mindful, I mean to really pay attention to the moment that you're in. Don't live for the moment. Live in the moment. Now, I know I've been teasing this a little bit this month, but in April, April is all about the letter A, the second A in badass, and it's about awareness. That's the A in the second A in badass. And awareness, and I'm talking about mindfulness. I had an experience of having to practice extreme mindfulness when I was out in Sedona recently, and I'm going to be sharing more about that coming up in April. But here's the thing. Paul J. Meyer said, enter every activity without giving mental recognition to the possibility of defeat. Concentrate on your strengths instead of your weaknesses, on your powers instead of your problems. So watch how you label your definition of happiness. Set goals that are achievable, and don't depend on the fact that one achievement or another is your definition of happiness. Keep the eye on the prize, not the label.
Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. Good medicine for a badass. How do you like them apples? A Kelly Orchard apple a day keeps a badass in sway.
All right. So those are some apples of wisdoms. I've got a little bit more for you here. So thanks, Bobby. I love those apples. Of course I do. You know, I used to write a blog called It's Only Victorville. And the reason why I call it It's Only Victorville was basically a story that I would share about my dad. And, you know, when we would fail or make a mistake on the air or have a struggle with a client. Remember, I was young and inexperienced. I'd say immature, but yeah, okay, I could go there. Inexperienced. And when something would happen, my dad was my coach. He was my business trainer, my coach, and just about everything. My brother was too. But dad would, you know, he came from Los Angeles, a major market radio. And so when I would make a mistake, whether it was a sales call or on the air or, you know, something that you needed to be building confidence, he would tell me it's not the end of the world. Everything's okay. And then he would say, hey, it's only Victorville. So that was kind of our mantra. And so I started writing a blog called It's Only Victorville a while back. And I'm going to share this with you about reinvention and how it takes small steps if you're in the process of needing to reinvent yourself as you're making a decision to transition. I said this earlier, I like to consider myself to be a master change agent. I help others create change in their lives from a positive perspective and encourage and empower them to take it one step at a time. I've always been a coach, even before I started doing it professionally. I don't really like the term life coach because it gives the connotation that someone can't get through life without some coaching. So what I do is help with personal development and professional development. Victorville was my own personal and professional training ground, and I often found myself in a position to coach others in unexpected ways, whether I was connecting somebody looking for a job with a company looking to hire, or helping a business build a marketing campaign, training my sales staff, or teaching dance and coaching a team to great performances. I'm a coach. Reinvention, or actually life transitions, needs to be attacked one step at a time. If you need, make that want to make a change in your life. I'm your coach. I'm your cheerleader. I'm your teacher. I'm your therapist. And as I prepare myself, I always like to listen to my peers, my friends, my family, my colleagues, and the social networks for insight and information on what resonates with them most. I once spoke to a group about lifestyle management, and for the hour that I presented information for them, I also learned a lot. It was a great group who was fully engaged in the conversation that we were having. And admittedly, there were moments of quiet where I realized that each and every one of them were deep in thought about their own life experiences while I struck a chord with the material I had shared. When I launched my blog, It's Only Victorville, years ago, and it's been quite a journey, I've had thousands of people read my blogs, my books, listen to my podcasts, and whatever. I'm so grateful for that. I often share the stories of my professional journey from my early years in Victorville and small market radio. Whenever I meet somebody new and share that my background is in my family-owned radio station that went on the air when I was a teenager, their response is, "Wow, how cool is that?" And when they learn that there's a radio station that is actually named after me, I become a mini celebrity in their eyes. Yes, actually, there was a station my dad built in the middle 80s, and the call letters are KLLY, and for about 30 years, it was referred to as Kelly 95. So when I tell these stories, it opens the door for me to tell them about what I do now. I've been in a season of reinvention for quite a few years, and in my attempt to transition from broadcaster to mental health advocate, but I find myself still going back to my media roots. I can't help myself. Grow where you're planted, right? I am an author, speaker, consultant, and coach. I'm also a licensed psychotherapist. And although the journey to make my own life transition may have seemed long to me, for others, it occurred in a flash. So I'm here to evangelize and spread the word, encourage and empower you that once you make the decision to reinvent yourself, it's so doable. So here's 5 tips for making some change. Set small, achievable goals and write them down. When you achieve the goal, celebrate it. No matter how small it may seem, you did it. Tip number 2, commit to making one step at a time and don't give up. That's the D in badass, but it's also the first S in badass. Steadfastly stay the course. Your long-term goal may take 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, but it's going to start by one small step and continuing to put one foot in front of the other. Employ a cheerleader, not the kind in the short skirt and skimpy top, but one who will continually cheer on your efforts. A friend, a colleague, a mentor who thinks you're awesome and really wants you to succeed. There's somebody like me that comes in, I'm everybody's cheerleader. I will celebrate you every day. Tip number 4, be willing to be humble. One of my most humbling experiences while I was in grad school to earn my master's degree was being a substitute teacher in a kindergarten class where my task was to cut pieces of paper and create little booklets so the 5-year-olds could learn the letter B. I had already been consulting for large media companies, and although this seemed like a menial job, the children loved their booklets and the teacher I was helping was truly grateful for the assistance. Be willing to humble yourself. Tip number 5, be patient. Know that there is no such thing as overnight success and that the change you want to make is going to take time. So be realistic about your expectations and reevaluate those expectations regularly. Cut yourself a break once in a while, won't you? If I can do it, so can you. So the D in the Badass acronym stands for decide. And so I want you to make that decision, make a commitment to yourself to make this change, this life transition, to grow. Write it down. Employ a witness. I just did.
Flipping the format on the fear of failure. Now you know it. A successful attitude changes when it chooses love over fear.
Thanks for listening and getting one step closer to being licensed to be badass. Be sure to subscribe to continue on the bus to Badassville. Snag your Badass Habits ebook at licensed2bebadass.com. You can stay in the slow lane and get just enough tools for successful badassery, one podcast at a time. Or you can join the Badass Ambassador crew in the fast lane by checking your baggage with my Licensed to Be Badass integrated program with videos, worksheets, and group coaching for motivation, mindset, and a fresh approach to living a fruitfully badass life.
Hey, badass, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. It's Fruitful Friday. So how you doing? All right. So weekend vibes and some fruitfulness. So this weekend, I'd like for you to reflect on something unique about you and remain focused on that during the weekend. The D in badass also includes respect and responsibility to that decision you make to grow into your successful badassery. So this weekend, focus on your uniqueness, reflect on it, and celebrate it. All right, so here's what you learned on the podcast today, Fruitful Friday. We're having a Badass Leadership Summit all throughout the month of March. And so the beginning of spring, we're covering the letter D in Badass, which stands for decide, to grow, and succeed. An important component to being licensed to be badass, to decide. So this is a Badass Leadership Summit, and I have some apples of wisdom for you and some leadership practices for a productive team. Last Wednesday, we played Carry On Wayward Son from Kansas. So I've got another clip from my Badass certification class to share with you. And I don't know, what song should it be? How about you give us a hint, Bobby, as we head out?
I got a feeling inside my bones. Grab your Badass Habits ebook. Get started on your badass journey. Go to licensed2bebadass.com.